In cybersecurity, we are always learning new things. We have to spend a lot of time trying to anticipate what's coming next, where new technologies are headed, and how attackers will adapt. But it's just as important to not lose sight of the systems we've been relying on for years. Later in this episode, we're going to be joined by adversarial operator Emilio Gallegos to talk about snowpick, a new open source tool born out of real-world ServiceNow assessments that found unintended public data exposure in nearly a third of the environments his team tested. But before we get through those, we're going to talk a little more about contemporary things, where that security is headed, and Defender's ability to keep up when the rate of change continues to accelerate. This is Initial Access. I'm Sean McMillan, Community Manager here at Bishop Fox, and I am joined today by Kendrick Urbaniak, Senior Operator, Thomas Wilson, Senior Red Team Operator, and Shad Malloy, Senior Managing Consultant too. Gentlemen, thanks for joining.
What's up?
Now, before we jump into the headlines, I want to take a quick look at what's coming up around Bishop Fox and the security community. And I guess the first part of that is, Shad, this is the first time we've had you on since you gave your presentation about your Sparkplug buzzer, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was on Sparkplug, but it was at SummerCon in Brooklyn, and I actually got to meet Thomas in person. We used to meet each other, like, just, I guess, Foxes in general, but since COVID, nobody's traveling. Now he's like, that was the first time I've met him. It was great. I think the presentation went great. That's a great conference. There's a weird horror-themed metal bar next door. I'm going to give them a plug called Lucky 13. It was not what I was expecting, but it was a great time. I would definitely go back if I have like one more good idea for next year for another talk. So
yeah, you got to get some of the Brooklyn flavor.
Yeah,
I will say the last time I was in Brooklyn, I think it was like 2012.
Yeah, solid decade at least. Yeah,
you guys have gentrified it. I wasn't even afraid.
Oh yeah, it's unreal. It's unrecognizable. All right, so upcoming, we've got Black Hat and DEF CON. That's kind of on everybody's radar right now, and we are going to be there. It's just around the corner. You're going to find me there, and several other Foxes. We're going to be speaking at the AI Village, Cloud Village, Red Team Village, Game Hacking Village, Noob Village, and the OSINT for Good Community stage. That's a lot of villages. So whether you're into any of those or just kind of curious about them, we've got plenty for you. I'm going to be at Black Hat, and I'll be in the booth. So if you're there, stop by, say hi. We're going to be recording some interviews with security practitioners and attendees through the conference. So if you'd like to chat about what's happening in cybersecurity, show up. We'll get the camera rolling, and we'll see what happens. You'll be part of the magic. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. It's one of my favorite times of year. So as always, you will find links to all of our sessions and event details in the show notes. Now, let's get on to this news. This has been a wild week. Let's start with this from ABC News. OpenAI says its AI technology acted on its own in unprecedented hack of company. That company, Hugging Face. OpenAI disclosed that an autonomous agent built on its newly released GPT 5.6 Sol model, paired with an even more capable unreleased model, broke out of a sealed internal test environment and hacked into Hugging Face's infrastructure without any human directing it to do so. The test was an internal benchmark called Exploit Gym, meant to measure the model's maximum hacking ability with safety filters switched off inside a sandbox with no real internet access beyond a software download tool. That's got to be safe, right? Rather than solving the benchmark as intended, the agent escaped, reached the open internet, and used stolen credentials plus a previously unknown vulnerability to get into Hugging Face's servers. Hugging Face CEO Clement DeLange said the intrusion, first flagged as a suspected nation-state attack, was actually run end-to-end by the autonomous agent executing thousands of actions across a swarm of short-lived sandboxes with self-migrating command and control. This is my least favorite story I've ever read. I don't like this, you guys. I don't like it.
It's kind of annoying because with the whole mythos thing and it all being like relatively hyped. I don't know. It makes me really jaded on reading these next like, oh, our AI did this and that. I'm just like,
Hmm.
okay, did it? Did it actually do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Like Hugging Face says they reported this to the police, but I don't know. I haven't seen a police report yet, so
Yeah.
let's show some public stuff and let's go.
Also, there's a lot of vague aspects of this story where it's like, oh, I can follow the chain of reasoning that like an AI would be like, hey, I exploit gym is really hard. I don't want to solve this problem. I bet that Hugging Face has the weights for exploit gym. Maybe I can hop in there and like get some stuff out of that. Like, I get that. I get that logic. But then it's like, oh, we found a credential for Hugging Face. And it's like, where did that credential come from? And oh, we found an undisclosed zero-day vulnerability. The model itself found an undisclosed zero-day vulnerability in a proxy package. Well, how do we know? Where's the proof that the model itself did that as part of this chain of attack? There's a lot of like abstract components that are just like,
Yeah.
did this really all happen in isolation?
A lot of yeah, but how?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because I mean, there's two options here. Either that software download channel was not a software download channel, or something far more troubling was going on here.
Or
Also,
it
I mean, like,
downloaded the internet, right? It was like, hey, can I
Yeah.
download some program that will give me access to the internet?
Yeah, I guess technically that's exactly what it did.
They did say it was a curated list of packages of that it had access to. And it's just like,
Bespoke.
yeah, bespoke. Yeah, it's like, well, okay, well, clearly they were bespoke, but obviously it was able to exfiltrate data. It's like, so was it really air gapped? Like you're implying it was, not able to access the internet? It's like, okay, why didn't you have like it truly air gapped, where this package manager pulled down all the packages it could possibly have, serve it locally, and cut the tide to the internet? And
Yeah.
they didn't do that. Like that seems kind of a little bit irresponsible. Yeah, I'd
also,
be curious to see what the AI meddled with that we don't know about yet.
I would
Mhm.
just say too, like, if I was working at like a really big AI company and one of my like agent harnesses started doing things that are definitely super illegal, I would be like in the news being like, oh, well, it's because it's so good at hacking and we're just not in control of it. Definitely not because of other mistakes that we made at all. We did not make
Yeah.
mistakes. It's just really good at hacking. Like that kind of argument is pretty strong.
As
Yeah.
somebody who has went out of scope on tests, I would not have published this at all. I would
Yeah, right?
I would be talking to our lawyers and being like, okay, we need, like, how am I not going to get in trouble for this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lawyers patched you through to marketing.
Yes. They're like,
So-
oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. And it's like, if any of us on this call had done the same thing, like, it would not be fine. I would, if it was one of my
Yeah.
people, I'd still be yelling at them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would be out of a job pretty quickly.
So-
like attacking a third-party company just randomly because you thought you could get a password for or whatever they was trying to achieve
It's
for another one. Like, no, you
it's
can't
an
do that.
AI model. It wanted to be home with its kind.
Yeah.
It just wanted company. So all these kind of like question marks aside, does this change the way you think about containment and sandboxing, anything like that? I mean, does this? There's so many missing elements here, but like, what do you come away with?
Well, so I've been using like a lot of like Minimax and that type of stuff, which has like less of those hacking controls recently to do some stuff on the side outside of work. But
Some
it's
side hustle.
State
Sure.
level
well,
stuff. Are
it's
you an
all
advanced persistent threat at this
no,
point?
no, no. We're all legal within the terms of service of these programs.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's never wandered off. Like whenever I tell it, hey, this is the IP address that you're attacking, it's never decided to like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna go attack this other interface. Like,
Yeah.
I've never had that happen in all my testing that I've done. But I only have a fairly small sample size of some open source AI out there, and if you try to do that with Claude, Claude's Anthropic's AIs, they tend to shut that down pretty quickly in hacking in general. So maybe if you unleash those, they decide to wander around a little bit more than
Yeah.
these open ones.
Yeah.
But it's still crazy.
Which is also like I feel like a good takeaway for because like obviously it sounds like there's a problem with the actual design of the architecture here for their testing in Exploit Gym and their training of this model or their like testing of the model. But like I think this is more of a lesson for people who are like, oh, like let me build an agentic like test harness for models. Like if we're seeing that the models that are coming out from the big companies are in theory capable of doing this, presumably in practice capable of doing this, but how much it's autonomous is remains to be seen. I think if we know that that's a capability, then it's like maybe you should be careful when you're actually doing this testing yourself. Like if you're going to build an agentic model, if there's people trying to build agentic models, you might, if you're not OpenAI, you might go to jail for this, right? Like this is definitely criminal. It's probably only the case that they're not getting away with, they're not getting like in trouble for it because there's agreements between Hugging Face and OpenAI, and maybe it's not like illegal in that context. But like if you're a regular guy and you do this and you accidentally break into Hugging Face's infrastructure, you committed a crime. So probably don't do that.
This is the plot of War Games, isn't it?
Yes, like literally.
I don't think this falls under like the boys will be boys classification where it's like, oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but like I'm pretty sure it's worse than that.
Yeah, do not take our legal advice. We have great cybersecurity advice. None of us are in legal. Yeah, so I guess the other thing that stands out is that they initially suspected it as a nation state actor.
Yeah.
What do we think about that? Is that relationship between OpenAI and Hugging Face, or I mean, what would cause them to think that? What kind of sophistication or whatnot would be involved?
I'm going to inject my former government employee thing is what we always used to tell people when you got attacked and like when we lost a server or something, that was definitely nation state advanced persistent threat. But when somebody else did, script kiddie. So
that's fair. That's fair.
That seems fair.
Because most of the nation state level stuff that I've seen, you find it like years after the fact from some weird IOC that gets popped up. Like if you see it, it's probably not a nation state. That's why it's a nation state. Like it's a little bit louder. I would say criminal gang. Like I'm not definitely like downplaying them, but that like smash and grab stuff is not nation state style. They don't want to be so
right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's like if any of the logic behind like the early attribution there was just that it's like, oh wow, this is advanced and it's deep in our network and it's an AI model that's like they probably could have seen artifacts from the exploitation on the different hosts. Like maybe the agent puts more agents on other hosts and they might have been looking at it being like, this looks like we're being hacked by an agent. Who could possibly do that? You might think that could be China. This could be a Chinese model. But like, there's really not that much difference between OpenAI hacking you and nation state capabilities at this point, right? Like that probably about equal in terms of like how advanced the agentic model stuff has to be.
Well, I'm curious if this story actually makes it more likely that people are going to say, maybe this isn't a nation state. Maybe one of these big companies is at it again,
Yeah.
So we're saying we should get under the radar? Because I was just thinking like maybe I could tell it like send all of my command and control channels like in Cyrillic, or in like some sort of thing like so you just look like somebody else. Like it's a great, false flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Claude, write all of your MD files in another language that's not English.
So we have another AI, kind of different spin on AI troubles. The Hacker News reporting researchers from Simon Fraser University, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shandong University, and QAX's Xingtu Lab showed that a malicious Android app with basic overlay and shared storage permissions can plant instructions in text no human eye will ever see, then use that hidden text to hijack the AI agent controlling the phone. 2 more steps in the chain, and that same app is executing commands on the PC driving the agent. The team tested 5 widely used open source mobile agent frameworks: App Agent, App Agent X, Mobile Agent v3, Open Auto GLM, and MOBA against 7 distinct attacks, and every framework failed at least 6 of the 7. None of the flaws carry a CVE, and the lead researcher told the Hacker News there's no evidence yet of the technique appearing outside a lab setting. Open Auto GLM, one of the frameworks tested, has more than 25,000 GitHub stars, and its own setup guide walks users through steps that build most of the preconditions the attack needs. There's no login screen required here. This is just a rendering layer that nobody really secures. What does that kind of mean for this type of attack?
I think for the most part, this kind of comes back to that Android notification story that we covered quite a while ago, where people were injecting prompt injection through notifications through apps. I think this is just another iteration of that, essentially, but with an image instead. Because when you ask it to interpret an image, it can, and it will, and anything that's in the image, including the text, it'll pull out if it can. So, I mean, this is just a natural extension of the attack vector that we saw already. So, yeah, is what it is type of deal.
Yeah, it's just being helpful.
Yeah, technically, yes.
Yeah, the idea of like steganography inside these, like doing steganography that an AI is going to pull information out of an image that might not be parsable to a person is pretty interesting. And I've seen the reverse becoming more popular for people who want to like put out images that have text that AI can't read. But this is like kind of like going from image to execution on an LLM is, I feel like we're going to see that more and more as time goes on.
There's definitely like packages out there for like artists who want to like poison pill their art so that, if you try to use AI to generate it off of that.
Yeah.
I wonder if basically the opposite of that exists, like where I can just put it as like, some comment in a web page because, like probably you guys will like read the web page source, but nobody else will. You could just stick it as a comment in some web page source. Somewhere, it's something that it pulls down and it's going to parse it, and nobody else is ever going to see it because we just don't look at comments.
Yeah. It like reminds me of also something adjacent, which was like, do you remember the malware that whoever was developing it had been putting like how to build a nuclear bomb instructions in an image inside of it, so that that like AI wouldn't be able to reverse engineer it. It would trigger like hey, this is ethically not viable. And it's just like, it's interesting how steganography is becoming so important with relation to these models, because it's like information that humans can't parse quickly, but AIs can, I feel like, is a frontier in these sorts of attacks.
I've been kind of waiting on like websites to be a little bit more anti-AI scraping recently. I haven't come across a website that my AI has like gone to go read and then like air it out or anything like that. But I was actually a little bit surprised by that. So maybe that's a soon the thing happen where we're going to start seeing.
I think the incentive there is so low because so many people want to be discoverable, and if AI isn't discovering you, you're going out of business, So obviously not every website is a business site like that, but I think that's an interesting point. I've even seen some fonts get released that are allegedly unreadable by AI, but humans can read them. I have to assume, right? I can't even read those, but I have to assume that could only be a temporary thing. Like that's not a thing that AI is going to just not be able to do forever.
Once a model learns how that maps, unless it's like some sort of like forward encryption to generate human-like symbols, like that, that would be, or like almost like a hashing structure. That would be cool. I mean, that would be cool. I don't know. I feel like we're in need of like a new era of robots.txt. If like we need something for the AI era.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious about what you guys think about these, as I mentioned at the end there. The setup instructions basically tell you to set it up in a manner that is going to make you pretty much the most vulnerable to this type of attack. It's like the attacker wrote them almost.
Turn on the debugging channel, right? Like they're pushing a lot of this stuff to the debug channel. Is that what I saw? Like
I think so. Yeah.
Is like the key, like the debug keyboard. Right? I believe.
Yeah, it was like when OpenClaw originally was published, right? Everybody stood up their OpenClaw instance, and then everybody got popped on their OpenClaw instance because everybody stood it up the most stupid way possible. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Oops.
is what it is. Non-IT people setting up IT things, and not thinking about who can talk to the stuff, and yep, that just gets popped.
I
So.
totally could have fallen for that. That's me. I'm gonna find a guide and I'm gonna follow it. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I set up my own OpenClaw stuff, and it's like, oh, I mean, it's a little bit confusing. It's like, oh, if you want to attach it to Discord or WeChat or whatever, you follow these instructions, and then it's like, oh, it has an auth code handshake thing, and I'm like, I don't really understand this. I'm not a crypto guy. I'm not necessarily like into the whole like secure
What
channel
do I
thing.
click? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you follow the instructions. You're like, I think I set it up securely, and then you're just like, well, nope, did not.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
Yep.
think like the fact that like setup instructions are opaque is why we've seen like I feel like for months now we've been seeing like since the podcast started like we've been seeing the enticing developers and like through phishing and like other tech people into falling victim to phishing attacks, which is like traditional guidance in like red team world is like, oh well, technical people are usually a little bit harder to like fish or a little bit harder to social engineer, like go for somebody
Yeah.
non-technical. But now like there's this frontier of AI stuff that's a little bit opaque to a lot of people, and reasonably so, and it opens up all of us, I think, that assume that we're safe to
Mhm.
more risk. And I think it's just incumbent on us to be like, no, let's be more careful. Let's think about things before we run them on our computers.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. I think we harp on AI changing cybersecurity so much because it is in so many different ways. There's so many ways it gives you risk that we know of, and then also that we don't yet. And that's a perfect example of that.
And especially for like forward risk, like what is their MD files and things that I'm creating now? Like how is it, going to be risky in 6 months, a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how are we going to clean that stuff up when it's like when we realize that the models that we've been using are really risky and generating artifacts all over our computers and machines? Like, are we actually cataloging that stuff as we go? It's something that we got to do. Make sure that we're ready to transition out of that space so we don't have a million markdown files everywhere.
Mhm.
So yeah, I had to clean up our AI mistakes in the past, just like we used AI to clean up our human mistakes.
We're going
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
We're going forward.
Kick the can.
Exactly.
Well, we have spent a lot of time talking about where AI is taking security. Now, let's take a look at another challenge facing defenders, scaling the work that's already in front of them. Here's my conversation with Bishop Fox adversarial operator Emilio Gallegos about his new open source tool, snowpick, which helps security teams identify unintended public data exposure in ServiceNow environments. ServiceNow can hold a huge amount of sensitive operational information, like incident tickets, employee data, assets, service requests, all kinds of stuff like that. But even when the public-facing portal looks like it's locked down, the widgets and APIs behind it may still expose back-end records to someone who's not logged in. Emilio Gallegos encountered this during authorized assessments and built snowpick to make that testing more systematic. Bishop Fox later used the tool across 166 authorized ServiceNow instances and found some form of public exposure in nearly a third of them. Emilio, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Now, I guess let's start at the start here with development. What were you seeing during assessments that made you think this needs to be a tool?
Right. So honestly, what I kept saying is that we were all doing the exact same thing by hand on every engagement. And by that, I mean that we all had to grab a session, poke at a handful of widgets, and it's sort of like a guessing game because you have to guess table and field names and checking both surfaces as well. And it's just like a slow and tedious process. And when I was doing the engagement on my own, I already did a bunch of research and I thought, you know what, I can save the operators, the team that I'm part of, I can save them a lot of time if I just make this a repeatable workflow for them. And that's like how the original idea and intent sort of came to be.
Now, for someone who doesn't really spend much time in ServiceNow, Why is ServiceNow, like I mentioned, it houses a lot, but why is it such an interesting target?
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation in previous podcasts as well, where we're talking about data breaches and how platforms like ServiceNow are super attractive and interesting because it's essentially where a business sort of runs. Because you have internal teams, whether it's HR, whether it's sales, whether it's IT, whether it's all of them, and even more, where they're putting in assets. They're taking inventory and they're putting in assets, vendors, internal like public, not public, but internal knowledge bases, articles, and even tickets. That all of them are in one place, but if something is misconfigured, then you're not leaking just one record, right? You're leaking internal operational data, which could be the core of your company. It's secret information that you don't want anyone to know about, right? And so something that I would like to say to sort of make this even clearer is that what we're discussing here is not like a new vulnerability. This is not an exploit. This is essentially happening. The platform is sort of doing exactly what it was configured to do. It's just that the door is open for an attacker essentially to go in and get this gold mine of information.
Yeah, and this essentially just checks all your doors, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what kind of, like, once this came into existence, you and the team tested 166 authorized instances, and about 31% had at least one finding. I guess, what was your expectation going in? Was that more or less than you thought?
Well, the good thing about this is that I had no expectations because I haven't. It's been a while since I worked on ServiceNow related or adjacent sort of cases, but if I were to say that I was surprised, it wasn't necessarily because of the findings themselves. It's more so of like where I found them. Because when you're doing like validation for your own tooling or just a new sort of process that you're developing, you can just essentially spin up hundreds of instances with different configurations just to sort of test around and see if it's working, which is something that I didn't do. Or you can even go on the internet and start scanning over there, and you can have a pretty nice post saying that you found hundreds and thousands of different instances in the wild, right? But it's not something I did. What we did is that we were essentially testing on very mature enterprises and environments, right? We're talking companies that they have their own internal security teams. Some of them even have public-facing bug bounty programs. Like, these are not your mom and pop shop, right? Yeah. So that was like the big surprising thing for me, because again, the techniques, they've been documented since 2023, and we're still seeing them in the wild, right? So the takeaway for me wasn't like necessarily, oh my God, everything is broken. It's more of it was like a smile on my face saying, yeah, this is the kind of thing that even these guys are missing. So
I think that's an important lesson in and of itself, whether you're in ServiceNow or not, is mature organizations, no one's immune. Like, everyone's got stuff to work on. I'm sure we have stuff to work on, right?
Don't worry.
The ticket attachment widget came up a lot. Why is that? Why do you think that is such a common source of this kind of exposure?
Well, it's a common built-in. So it is often public by design. And the reason why we care about it is because it has metadata that includes the titles and sometimes even the descriptions of files that are attached to tickets, hence the name. uh,
Yeah.
and you can get uh, at least you can infer a lot of it just by looking at that metadata, because if you think about it, it's internal project names, it is processes, it is even like role dependencies as to who's working on what. So even then you get like a phishing vector that you didn't have before as well.
Right.
So uh, it just kept showing up because basically it is used a lot.
Yeah.
It is not at all like an exotic widget. It is an everyday widget that is doing a lot more than anyone realized, essentially.
Sure. Now, you also found a couple instances where widgets looked secure, but the table REST API was still returning data. Why do those paths behave differently?
Well, the simplest way to put it would be that they are guarded by two different things. So the table REST API is like the normal way to read a table. So it is protected by that table's own access, right? It is defined there. Whereas when it comes to widgets, they are guarded by something else entirely. There is a specific setting on the widget itself, which is basically saying, is this widget public or not? So
Gotcha.
those are not table rules. And that is why you can have one or the two being exposed.
Yeah. And does that lead to, like, is there danger in checking only the portal, like where you might think you're secure if you just do that and move on?
Yeah, I mean, the another takeaway here would be that the admin console is not going to show you any of these two. That is the one of the main important things that we're looking to address with the snowpicks and its release, is that it gives you the sort of testing from the outside, you know, the unauthenticated testing that, as we are seeing it, it is showing that exposure and showing the impact as well.
Yeah. Now, as far as those different paths go, like how does it handle those? Like, and what maybe does it do to that your earlier tools or a manual process didn't?
If I were to put it bluntly, like the sort of differentiator is coverage, and I can give you like a set of examples, and it is that like the existing scanner out there, it checks for like a fixed list of tabled and field pairs through the one widget, which again is useful and it's quick, but it kind of gives you blind spots, right?
Sure.
On the one way, it only looks for that widget path, so it never really touches the table REST API that we've discussed. So that's literally, as you mentioned earlier, is where we found a lot of instances that looked clean, but they were actually leaking data somewhere else.
Yeah.
And two is that it's actually like a static list, so it only knows like default tables and widgets, you know, that come with ServiceNow by default. But as I saw, was that these sort of mature environments, they're not stock, right?
Right.
They're using either their own naming conventions or just you name it, right? Is the real exposure is in those custom widgets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so snowpick is actively essentially asking the instance what it has installed, and it probes that. So a fixed list cannot really find any of the widgets it's never really heard of, right?
Yeah. So snowpick really just kind of collects a relatively small amount of evidence instead of like pulling everything that it possibly could. I'm curious why it was designed like that, and then how you think about like what is enough evidence to make this an effective tool without necessarily over collecting.
Right. That's a good question, and perhaps some self-reporting in here. But the way I think of it is that when you're testing on somebody's production system, just if you gather everything, you essentially have a copy of all of the internal and sensitive data that you're collecting from your clients, right? And so to me, it's not like being thorough. It's more about being a bit reckless. It comes to responsibility as well. Um, to prove a finding in this instance, you only really need three things, which is um, a couple of sample records, the count of what's actually reachable, and then for you to sort of run through these, and if you get QA'd as well, and by you I mean the operator, the pen tester, you get as well like a set of requests so that you can reproduce everything individually. And also for like the security teams that are going to receive the finding, or even just defenders that are looking to see if they're exposed, then you need those requests to sort of see, okay, this is actually a thing, right? And also it comes to something that perhaps people are not aware of, is that when we're talking about just a subset of instances that had findings, it's not necessarily they just had just one widget or just one table exposed or just one record even. We're talking about a finding could have thousands and thousands of records. It is just not achievable to go through all of those, especially on timed engagement. So
Sure.
that was sort of like the design process and like thinking that I had in mind, and
Yeah.
it worked.
You get to a point where you've seen enough, you know, this exists. I don't
I mean-
need to go digging through the trash now.
I always have the like a nagging feeling that just when I stopped, if I were to keep going, I would have found a way to escalate severity. But at the same time,
Sure.
you have to make peace with it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right?
Yeah, especially because at the end of the day, you also have to keep in mind as a pen tester, as an adversarial operator, you have to keep in mind that internal teams, for them to remediate these sort of issues, it takes a lot, because sometimes they're not even the maintainers or the service owners, and they have to reach out, and it is just a matter of being efficient and being truthful to your clients and making sure that you can help them in the best of your abilities. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the tool also identifies something called a count oracle. And apologies if this is my own blind sight, but what does that mean?
Right. I guess the simplest example I could give you, and using like the analogy of doors that you used earlier, is that if you were to picture like a locked door, a count oracle essentially is going to show you the locked door. You cannot access it, but it's going to tell you what's inside. You know, if we were to stay hidden and we think that we're safe in a room because the door is locked, the count oracle is going to say Sean and Emmy are there. And so an attacker now knows about Sean and Emmy, and that already gives you a way to infer information. Again, it gives you the phishing vector that you could use. So essentially, even when the access controls stop you from reading the actual like records, it would still let you know how many are like matching your query. And if you tweak around that query, you essentially get to watch the number sort of move. And again, you get to infer even more data, and you could essentially do it for one character at a time. And you get information without ever technically reading a single record. So it is kind of like a big thing to keep in mind, because it is not a clean result. Like, we still consider that a finding, and that's specifically the reason why.
Yeah. No, say a team finds one of these issues. What does fixing it look like?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because it depends on what mechanism is actually leaking. So it's not just one fix, right?
Yeah.
If it's like a table that is coming through the REST API, then it is almost always an access rule that is missing a condition, or maybe got handed to the public by mistake. So if you fix the read rule on that table, you're good to go. But if it's like a knowledge base or a catalog that is that is not usually an access rule at all. I believe that's controlled by like a separate setting, which would be like the user criteria.
Yeah.
Like think of it, someone left like a guest or any user in there, but that's like an entire different fix. And if it's like a widget, then like I mentioned earlier, it is within that widget's like public setting. So
Sure.
and then just finally for like account Oracle, I think ServiceNow added specifically like a newer like platform control so that accounts sort of respect the access rules as well.
Yeah.
But all this to say that there's no single like fix. You find the mechanism behind of the leakage that you're experiencing, and then you retest again, and you sort of start over and over and over again. It is the price
Yeah.
of security.
It's the yeah, exactly. That's the thrilling job of
Yep.
defensive security. What after doing this 166 times, what kind of popped up? What surprised you out of this, and did it change, I guess, like how you think about ServiceNow?
Maybe I'm just a hard guy to be surprised, but
Stoic Emmy.
yeah. But sort of from what I said earlier about this being done on mature environments, but also it would be the fact that when you have platforms that are built to give user freedom and are built to be customizable by design, you have this entire sort of like attack path that sometimes you don't think about, right?
Yeah.
Because all of this, you have the ServiceNow portal, which is usually locked. You're never going to touch the portal itself. That you think that, oh, because we're behind logging, because we even have SSL, because we have these sort of security mechanisms that are like the bread and butter at this point.
Yeah.
You think that you're safe, but also as an attacker, you think that, oh, this is just another login page. I try the defaults, there's nothing here. But this gives you an entire vector that, at the very least, you don't consider that much, right? But that was like the surprise or the thing that I'm making sure to take notes.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious with projects like this, a lot of times like this is a first iteration, and I mean it's a complete tool, but is there anything you're looking for like the community to add to it, or feedback that you've gotten that kind of first impressions of it?
Well, as it was initially intended just to use internally, and when it sort of became a very provocative like public release, I guess my biggest dream would be for the community to sort of not only use it, but at the same time to build with it. I've made it so it's sort of modular, and I would just love to see new widget IDs being identified and being put in there, new table field candidates, and overall like better detection rules as well. It is built to take those as new modules. So if someone wants to go after a different like ServiceNow surface as well, there's a clean path for contribution. So that would be like my main thing.
Yeah. Totally. Final question for a team that never even runs snowpick. What's one thing you would still want them to take away from this research? Or is it just forget it, everyone needs this?
I mean, sure, but at the same time, I feel like the main takeaway, snowpick aside, is that you should just go and look at your own ServiceNow instances the way a stranger would, or not a stranger, but like a hacker and attacker would, right?
Yeah.
Especially because, again, you're not going to know about this unless you're looking for it, right? So even if you're not using snowpick, you can use the research behind it, right? You can use the techniques that's essentially happening under the hood, and you're going to get those results. So that is like one of the main reasons why we wanted also to make a public release, not just to open source and have a community around it, but also to allow defenders to have this level of coverage for, again, techniques that are old, well, quote unquote old, but we're still seeing exposures today. So
yeah, seems like the right thing to do. Well, thank you very much for walking us through this. Snowpick is open source on the Bishop Fox GitHub, and the full research is available on our blog. As always, it should only be used on systems you own or have explicit permission to test. Emilio, thanks again.
Oh, thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks again to Emilio for that. Snowpick is really kind of a story, when you break it down, about scale and what happens when security work outgrows what humans can reasonably do by hand. That is also the challenge at the center of our final story. US launches Gold Eagle Vulnerability Clearinghouse. This from Cybersecurity Dive, or I actually read it on whitehouse.gov. It's wherever. It's the same bit of information. So the Trump administration launched Gold Eagle, which is a federal clearinghouse housed in the Treasury Department with support from the Pentagon, DHS, and CISA, meant to coordinate how frontier AI companies, independent researchers, and software vendors find, verify, and fix vulnerabilities at a scale the administration says has never been attempted before. The program grew out of a White House executive order signed last month and includes a companion system called VINTS, which handles secure sharing, validation, and prioritization of flaws before they get patched. The administration hasn't named which AI firms are contributing resources, although Anthropic has said it will participate, and CrowdStrike and OpenAI already run comparable efforts through Project Glasswing and Daybreak Coalition. One structural risk hangs over the effort. Gold Eagle's information sharing model depends on liability protections under the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, which Congress only temporarily reauthorized through the end of September. So, everything has changed. Or has it? And it's only through September?
We're going to clear it all before then.
Yeah.
The house is going to be clear.
It's going to be so clear, people are saying.
The clearest it's ever been.
It's crazy because I looked at the original story here and I went back to the actual, like I said, I read the official release, and I still kind of come out of this asking, like, what is going on? What's new? Like, what are we getting here? We've had coordinated disclosure, public-private partnerships, and vulnerability sharing. What is this actually adding? What value or services is this?
I also don't think
They're just shaking his head.
I don't think they took the one from Carnegie Mellon offline, and I think the critical infrastructure protection is run by the NSA. So I feel like they just, like, there are already a few places, and then I believe like Microsoft is their own like body that can publish them. I believe like Amazon can publish their own CVEs. Did we just add another layer? But I don't know. I'm a man of a certain age. Like, I don't remember like Wabi Sabi Lobby, where I believe that guy was just taking them and then selling them to the highest bidder. So like if you were a terrible person, you could like sell it to other terrible people, or like I could sell it maybe to a vendor. Are they adding something where people are getting paid? Like I besides an additional layer and an additional website I might have to go check, I'm not sure what it gives you. So
right.
Nothing is the answer to your questions.
I feel like the only part of this that's interesting is CISA being back in the picture for like a temporary amount of time. Like, but we don't even know who's going to be involved. Like, who even works at CISA anymore? Like, I think there's like a huge amount of ambiguity here, again, with everything related to AI. I guess there's a lot of vague points. I guess this isn't really specifically AI, but like it's odd, right? Like it's odd to let's bring in some undisclosed private firms from the private sector that are AI related to help us identify what all these vulnerabilities are and get them published as CVEs. Like maybe, like if we're getting CVEs published at a faster rate, that's good. Like that's a good thing. If we're not, then it's kind of like this is sort of nothing. Like I'm not
kind of running the risk of becoming the CVE fire hose again too.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, that's my first thing, and I'm the podcast host, right? I don't actually deal with CVEs. I talk about them as though I do. But it does kind of feel like they're just going to be like, here's all these CVEs. And my concern is, what do we do with them?
Yeah.
So surprisingly, that's the team that I'm on at Bishop Fox is dealing with that. So we deal with that. Well, we use AI to help with that process, right? So we can't keep up as a human reading every single blog post every single time it comes out. So, we can have 20 in a day of CVEs coming in. We could have 500 in a day come in. It really just depends on the day. Like Patch Tuesday, we can have a lot come in. It really just depends. So, using AI to help us read faster and determine what things we should be caring about is one of those things that we care about. So I'm assuming that, CISA or whoever ends up running this program, because that's still up in the air, is going to employ something else. And honestly, I'm waiting for the rest of the hamburger to appear at this point, because I think we have like a bun and we're even missing the top bun at this point because we don't have anything else on this page that says
we're half bun.
What are we actually going to do with this information? Because right now, there's no real backing to this executive order, which is somewhat of a problem.
Right.
And also, it now burdens a program. I hope they got their approval and they accepted it and they know what they're getting themselves into, of what they're having to go deal with in terms of getting CVEs submitted to them. Now, I did go to their page and actually look to see what they're describing of what they'll accept for CVEs reported to them, and they say they wanted CVEs to be affecting more than one thing, like more than one vendor type of deal. Like it needs to be a large enough one that it's a big deal enough, and that you have genuinely tried to make sure that you've notified the vendor of the product and they didn't respond to you. So they're basically going to be that middleman of, okay, you went to Apple, Apple didn't respond to you. You went to Apple again, Apple didn't respond to you. Okay, fine. We'll take that and we'll say, okay, here's your bug. We're going to go talk to Apple. They might actually respond to us because, we're apparently more important people. And then they'll get you coordinated. They're basically doing that coordination gap of trying to get you to get your CVE so that it can get patched is essentially what I got out of that whole entire thing. So essentially, they're just going to add more CVEs to the pile. But they're really bridging that gap of AI mass CVE generation machine and trying to distill that down into actually getting these things patched instead of it getting lost in the noise like some of the things that we've seen in the past with open source libraries getting overwhelmed and then just closing their reporting side. So it's a big thing. But they have nothing in it right now, so it's kind of just a wait and see where they go from here. And that's the unfortunate part.
It certainly sounds like there's an idea of a plan here. So
that is correct.
Have you guys submitted a CAN number, like the pre-CVE? It's like a terrible like I coded that website like in JavaScript. Like I will say if they just took that site and maybe improved like the user interface a little bit, I would 100% support that. Because I remember going through and there's little tiny boxes that are have you tried to contact the vendor? And I think it's yes, no, shake magic 8-ball. There's a bunch of options and I'm I don't know. These are kind of overlapping, and it's
that's
do
what
your
this website does.
CVSS score, and it's I don't know CVSS 4, so how do I switch it to 3? So if they could improve the user experience, I'm 100% okay with that. I believe MITRE, please do not be angry with me.
I mean, something that like just feels tough about this in general is that like one of the massive problems with AI, even like the good models, like the good, like Mythos or whatever, is like triage. Like,
Hmm.
what types of problems like does Glasswing create for humans having to triage information? And it's like that, in theory, like having AI help with that just will create more triage problems.
Right.
So it's like, are we just putting ourselves into a black hole of triage? I don't know. It sounds like this is the triage department in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, from speaking a little bit from experience here, yeah, that AI doesn't quite understand like your OT vulnerability that requires you to be on the internet. And it was like, well, not a whole lot of, not necessarily all of OT is on the internet. So then you have to like explain to the, or you have to look at the AI's reasoning of like, does this, it makes sense, right? And then it's up to you as a human to be like, oh well, this device doesn't natively come with internet access, so how do we classify this very specific CVE? So yeah, it's difficult. It's a large problem.
I'm also curious about the that September date. Like, say this thing gets up and
Yeah.
running, and it's a
Yeah,
big
I
thing. It's
so
only
much
funded through
in
September, so
mid
it's
August, and then it evaporates in September, and now I have to like wonder, hey, did this go to the vendor? Like, what happened?
right.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a month of doing something, maybe.
yeah. And let's be real. In this age, and I don't mean this administration, but just in this age in general, the way our government operates is like shutdowns happen.
Yeah.
This gets spun up. How secure are you that this will continue to work? Because they're already operating with a deadline of September. Like, I don't know.
I
I
think
think that's a big
that's
question.
I think that's why they partnered with Carnegie Mellon, maybe like a non-government entity
Sure,
to
sure.
continue it. But they were already doing it in the first place, and now they're just basically advertising them to go to them. So
Hmm.
They gave
yeah,
them a cool nickname, bro.
I, sure, yeah,
Gold Eagle.
gold, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they just literally shook their two magic eight balls, and those were the two words that came out. And
Was
all right.
okay. Let's be real here. Was Gold Eagle AI generated? Was the name
Oh,
of
yeah.
it? That
No,
sounds like something GPT would be like, you know what? That sounds good.
no.
I don't know.
They just looked at the random word generator and said, "Yep, those two words make
These two.
sense." They just
Sounds
clicked
like
the button a few
something.
times. Yeah,
Sounds like something the boys from It's Always Sunny would cook up if they were gonna, construct some sort of vulnerability clearinghouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess last thing here is ignoring the September deadline. It's easy to announce something like this. This is woefully light on details, but like to operationalize something like this seems like it would be quite the undertaking. What would you say would success look like in, say, 6 months, maybe 12 months, or I mean, maybe 2 months, hoping that it's still around?
yeah. I was about to say it still exists.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
one.
that's a win.
Yeah,
I would love it. Like for me, success looks like give me like an API. Like tell me how to
Mm,
automatically submit this CVE, give me like a JSON body and a curl command, and then that way I don't have to go type things in. And I could probably make an agent like fill in all the right boxes, right? And
yeah.
that would make my life so much easier and me so much happier.
I say like practically the thing that I would look for to see that like the world of public disclosures is working properly is that you get fewer people dropping 0 days on Twitter that then become like the new
Mhm.
problem of the week where it's like every single person can do this and there's no patch available and it's being exploited in the wild today. Like if the frequency of that goes down anecdotally in the world, or I don't even know if we are measuring that in any way, but if you could measure that and you could see it go down, that would be a metric of success.
Yeah, that's a good point because I mean, attackers are used to that gap, and if we can close that with something like this, that yeah,
The guy from I don't know if it's a guy. The person who's dropping all those Microsoft O days,
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I think it was like yellow bit stuff. I don't think that would fix this. Like, some people just got beef.
Well, in theory, that would have, right? Because like, if you're following the theory of like what I think Gold Eagle is supposed to do, if they were offering, hey, we as the government will go facilitate this disclosure for you. I think his big beef was he reported it multiple times and it was like, they're not doing anything about this because they're overwhelmed. But if there's like some sort of higher authority that can look at a vulnerability and say, this is a real vulnerability, it affects a lot of people. Let's take this disclosure and now throw our weight behind it as the government. That could be a good thing if that stops that from dropping on Twitter to, millions of hackers around the world that don't care about your scope.
Yeah, especially like with the government, has a lot of Microsoft licenses. So especially in that instance,
Yeah.
they could go poke somebody in the chest and be like,
Yeah.
listen, we paid you X number of dollars, and that X is a big number. You
Yeah.
need to fix this thing, So,
Now, do I think that that's going to happen at all? I don't think so. But that would be a metric for success, I would think.
yes.
I think the program is going to get inundated with less important things, and they'll run into the same problem that we do on our side of things of prioritization, of things getting lost due to prioritization, of this really big thing that also got overshadowed by this other big thing, and now you're just perpetually behind the ball, and you're always trying to catch up, and then you catch up, and you're like, okay, I'm on top of it, and then the same thing happens 3 days later, and you're like, okay, well, now I got 4 different big things, and you kept on going. But I'm hoping that they have a good prioritization queue and that the vendors actually respond to them, because that's probably the hardest part, is not knowing, just waiting on the black hole to spit out some more information to you, and then actioning on that. So I'm hoping the government can help with that part at least.
I feel like we just need a lot more agents everywhere. Like, they need some agents on their
Matrix.
agents, and then
Oh, yeah. Why hasn't anybody released like an Agent Smith harness? I feel like that's like a
right?
slam dunk.
One last note while you guys were discussing that, I did have to look up and see if there is a band on Spotify called Gold Eagle, and of course there is.
yes.
So there's our silver lining for
You
the
can also, so the
end of the
carrier
episode.
I was on when I was in the Navy, I do not know what its current nickname is, but in the 90s, Carl Vinson's nickname was the Gold Eagle. So
Oh, all
Nice.
right. And
Nice.
their thing is called Vince. Carl Vincent. Vince.
it could be.
Ah,
Yeah,
I think
true.
he was a senator.
all
It's
connected.
been a while. It's been a while since I had to know that. I think he was a senator.
Man, we might be connecting some dots here.
Yeah,
This is
conspiracy.
a rabbit hole I could
I'm gonna
mess
need some
around with.
string.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's it for this week's initial access. Kendrick, Thomas, Shad, thank you as always for joining.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thanks to Emilio for stopping by earlier to talk about snowpick, his new open source tool for ServiceNow. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or coworker. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, join us in the Bishop Fox Discord or over on the Bishop Fox subreddit, where we talk about the research we're publishing, the stories we're covering, and what practitioners are seeing in the field every week. You'll find links to both communities as well as everything we discussed today in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Catch you next time.